Hello, welcome to this course titled Trello Beginner. In this course, we'll cover the basics of using Trello to manage your tasks and projects. You'll learn how to use the main Trello building blocks of boards and cards, and you'll learn how to coordinate and collaborate with your teammates within Trello. We'll also look at some useful features to help you get the most out of this simple but powerful project management tool. Trello is based on a visual workflow management system known as Kanban. Kanban was developed to optimize the automobile manufacturing process, but has since become a very popular way to approach project management, software development, and personal productivity. A Kanban board is the core tool of this system. It consists of columns representing different stages of a process, such as to do, the tasks that need to be started, doing, the tasks that are currently being worked on, and done, the completed tasks. Each task moves from one column to the next as work progresses. A key premise of Kanban is that a person or team can only ever really focus on a few tasks at any given time. A Kanban board visually drives home that focus by making it clear at a glance what is happening right now on a project. The Kanban board also supports agility and flexibility as a project's priorities change over time. As opposed to planning out the timing of each task, maybe days, weeks, or even months in advance, tasks stay in the to-do bucket until they rise in priority to become in progress, or doing. People who love the Kanban approach love it because it offers visual clarity, you can instantly see what needs to be done, improved focus, you only work on a few tasks at a time, and better organization. All tasks for a project are tracked in one place. So a Kanban board is where it all happens. It contains lists and cards for your project. Let's take a closer look at a Trello board. A Trello board is a collection of all the tasks that need to be done for a given project. In Trello, a task is referred to as a card. In this example, I've started a simple board to plan out my garden project. I've created cards for each of the tasks that need to get done. Cards are visually grouped into vertical containers. In Trello, a vertical container for holding cards is referred to as a list. Lists often represent different stages in a workflow, such as to do, doing, and done. Cards move from left to right across the board until the task is ultimately completed. A board is a flexible workspace that can be customized for any kind of project, small or large. Here is an example of a board that might be used to organize the work of a software development team. It expands on the three to do, in progress, and done lists to create a more granular workflow. For this team, a card, which might represent a new software feature, needs to go through a design phase before being moved over to do and then doing. Once that software feature is done, it needs to go through code review and testing before really being done. Let's take a look at another example. Here's an example of a board for organizing a job search. A list has been created for each distinct phase of the search, such as applied or recruiter screen and first round interview. Each task represents a job application that has been submitted and moves across the board, hopefully as the application progresses. While most boards use the approach of moving tasks from left to right, Trello supports other kinds of workflows. While most boards use the approach of moving tasks from left to right, Trello supports other kinds of workflows. Here is an example of a board by someone planning to move to a new location. Cards are organized into lists based on when the task needs to be completed. On this board, cards don't progress from left to right. A card stays in its list until it gets completed, at which point it jumps to the completed list. Let's take a look at creating boards and lists. To create a board, click the plus sign at the top of the screen and then Create Board. Or you can start with a template. From here, you'll see several options. You can also click Explore Templates to see many, many more options. For our example, let's make one from scratch. So I'll go back and click Create Board. I'm going to use this board to track my new cookbook project. So I will give it the title of Cookbook. I can choose a different background. I will explore the visibility options, and I'll leave the default setting. And then I'll click Create. Next, enter the name for your first list. I'll name mine Recipe Ideas. I'll use this list to store all of my ideas for recipes that might make it into my cookbook. My next list I will title Test and Refine. I'll use this to keep track of the recipes that I'm testing and tweaking and getting just right before they're ready to go into my cookbook. My last list I will call Done. These are all the recipes that are finished and ready for my cookbook. Now, I don't need a fourth list, so I'll go ahead and click the X next to the Add List button. Now, that's looking pretty good. Now, maybe I've decided that, you know what, I think I do want a fourth column. I want to take some photographs of my recipes after I've tested and refined them and before I say that they're done and ready for entry in my cookbook. So I'll click the Add Another List button, and I will name this list Photos. Now, it's in the wrong spot in my workflow, so I just need to click and drag it and put it where I'd like it to be. Excellent. Now I have my workflow set up. I will create some recipe ideas. Then I'm going to test and refine those recipes. Then I'll take some photos of those finished recipes, and then I will consider it done. So a Trello board is a place where all of the cards associated with a project are visually grouped into lists. If you haven't yet created a Trello board, pause the video and go ahead and give it a try now. Next, we'll start working with cards. Cards represent the tasks that need to get done for this project. This board is titled Garden, so I'll add cards for each task that needs to get done in order for my garden to get going. To create a card, simply click Add a Card and enter a brief descriptive title. I'll title mine Order Seeds, then click Add Card. I'll go ahead and create other cards for Get Soil Tested. And maybe I'm going to need to add compost. At any time, I can go back and add more details to a card. To access the card details, simply click on it. This is my Order Seed cards. I'm going to go ahead and add some notes, like I want to grow pumpkins, tomatoes, and kale. I also want to write a note to myself that I can order seeds from garden at the corner. Then I'll click Save, to save my notes. Click on the X to close the card. When I'm ready to start working on this card, I'll click and drag it into the Doing column. A card can also be moved by clicking on the Edit Card icon in the right-hand corner, selecting Move, select which list I want to move it to, and then click Move. Now my card is in the new list. Within a card, you can also move it. From the card details on the right-hand side, I can select Move, and I might decide, oh, I'm not quite ready to do this one yet. So I'm going to move it back to my to-do list, then click Move. When I close the card, I'll see it back in the list I just moved it to. You might decide that you'd like to rename a board to give it a more descriptive name. That's easy to do. I want to rename my board to my vegetable garden in case I make another board that's about my flower garden. To rename a board, navigate to the board you'd like to rename, click on the name, and edit it. Then click anywhere else on the screen. That's it. Sometimes it's useful to attach files to a card. For example, on my garden board, I might want to attach a drawing of my garden layout for my Plan Layout card. To do that, click on the card, click Attachment, click Choose a File, navigate to the file you'd like, select it, click Open, and the file will upload. I now see it listed under the Attachments. If I close the card, I'll see a little paperclip indicating that this card has an attachment. A neat thing you can do with image attachments is make that image be a cover photo. I'll see a preview of the image on the card, and I'll also see that when I'm looking at the board. If you don't want to use that cover image, you can always remove it. Simply click into the card, click Cover, and then Remove Cover. You can also attach cloud-based files like Google Docs or Dropbox. In my case, I have a Google Sheet that tracks all kinds of information about the seeds that I want to order. So I'm going to attach that file to my Order Seeds card. To attach a cloud-based file, click Attachment, and paste the link, which I already have on my clipboard. Then click Insert. I now see a link to that Google Sheet under Attachments. Attachments can also be added to comments. I have an image that I'm really inspired by for my garden fence, or my garden door. So in my garden door card, I'll make a comment that says, how about something like this? I'll click the paperclip, navigate to my file, and then save my comment. You'll see the image here in line with my comment, and you'll also see the image listed in the attachments area. Note that this cover image got added automatically. So there are several ways that you can add attachments to your cards. If you have additional information outside of Trello that will be helpful for your cards on your boards, go ahead and try adding those files as attachments. You can see how Trello can really help you get organized in your projects. But Trello is even more powerful when you invite other people to collaborate with you so that they can add details to cards and hopefully even mark stuff as done. To invite other people to your board, click Share. You can start typing the name, and if that person already has a Trello account, you'll see a list that matches the name you enter. You can also enter an email address and click Share, which will send an invite to that person. If the person does not yet have a Trello account, they'll receive an email inviting them to create one. In the free version of Trello, anyone you invite is added as a member, meaning that they can view and edit cards and lists. The paid version of Trello offers more granular control of permissions. You can also use the Create Link option to generate a URL that you can share. Anyone with the URL will be able to access your board and view and edit cards and lists. You can also invite people to collaborate with you within your whole Trello workspace. A workspace is the container that holds all of your boards. So to share your workspace, click on Workspaces, select your workspace, and click Invite Workspace Members. I can go ahead and send an invite. Once someone is a member of your workspace, they can join any board within that workspace. You can also use the Create Link option to invite members via a generated URL. If you haven't yet invited someone to your board, pause the video and give it a try. Traditionally, the Kanban approach to project management focuses on identifying a small set of tasks that are top priority and that should be being worked on right now. While that is the traditional approach, sometimes it's practical to assign specific due dates to tasks. So let's take a look at how to do that. To set a due date, open a card, click on Dates, and use the calendar to select a date and enter time. I want this task, ordering seeds, to be completed by the end of this month, so I'll select that date. Note that I can also set due date reminders. I'll pick one day before. Then click Save. The due date displays on the card. If I close the card, I also see the due date displayed on the card preview. It's also possible to edit the due date without opening the card. To do that, I click on Edit Card, Edit Dates, and I can change the date right here. Let's see what happens if I say that this card is due tomorrow. Note that the date is now displaying in bright yellow, which tells me it's due in less than 24 hours. I better get focused on this one. Depending on when your due date is, you'll see different display. Depending on when your due date is, you'll see a different display of colors here. Let's say the due date was yesterday. It now shows up in bright red saying, uh-oh, this one's late. If you haven't yet assigned due dates to any of your cards, pause the video and give it a try. Since the goal of Trello is to help you get organized and get things done, let's talk about what happens when your task is done. When the task for a card has been completed, mouse over the card. A circle will pop up next to the card title. Click the circle to mark the card as complete. If the card has a due date, note that the date will turn green. If you've marked a card as done by mistake, you can always unmark it. You can also mark a card as complete by clicking into the card and clicking the circle next to the title. Note that even though your board might have a list for done or completed cards, marking a card as completed does not automatically move the card into that list. You can decide what process works best for your project, whether it's marking cards as completed or moving them over to the done list. or maybe a combination of both. While we won't cover it in this video, know that Trello does support creating automations so that when certain actions happen, such as marking a card as completed, other actions can be triggered automatically, such as having a card move to another list. That's possible. Again, Trello is a flexible tool, so you can decide what works for you, your project, and your team. Adding labels to cards is a great way to add a bit more organization to the board and provides at-a-glance information about the tasks. For my garden board, I'd like to add labels to categorize the kinds of tasks that need to be done. For example, some cards relate to physically building the garden, so I might have a label for build. Some relate to growing plants, so I'll label those grow. And some cards that I haven't yet created will relate to harvesting. To create labels, click on the 3 dots in the upper right and click Labels. Click on one of the color bars and enter a title. Then click Save. I can add additional labels as needed. Maybe I will use green for grow. And maybe I will use orange for harvest. Note that I can select other colors, but this color will work just fine for me. Another useful set of labels might be high, medium, and low to designate the priority of the task. I will use red for high. I'll use purple for low. And I'll use yellow for medium. To add labels to a card, open the card, click Labels, and select one or more labels. This card is about planning the layout for my garden, so I will apply the Build label. And maybe this is a high priority task. Those labels now appear on my card. If I close the card, I see those same color labels showing up right here, giving at-a-glance information that helps me stay organized. These labels can also be edited right from this view by clicking Edit Card, Edit Labels, and modifying as needed. Maybe this is more of a medium priority. Have you tried adding labels to your cards? If not, pause the video and give it a try. Sometimes, in order to complete the task represented by a card, several smaller tasks need to get completed first. A simple way to keep track of these smaller tasks is to create a checklist. For example, on my garden board, I have a card for Build Garden Door. There are several steps involved with doing that, so I'll keep track of those steps using a checklist. To create a checklist, open a card, click Checklist, give it a title. I'll just use Checklist, and click Add. The checklist has been added to the card, and I'm now ready to add an item. I'll label my first item as Research Designs. I'll click Add. Let me add some more checklist items. Perhaps Choose Design, and then Buy Materials, and then Build Door, and then Install Door. In the paid version of Trello, it's possible to assign checklist items and due dates to members of this board. To do that, I can mouse over a checklist item and use the due date feature to set a due date for the task, to set a due date for the checklist item, and check on the person icon to assign this task to another person. Now you might be wondering what things belong in a checklist and what things belong as cards themselves. The answer is it really depends. It depends on your project and how you and your team work. You can decide what works best for you. Have you tried using checklist items yet? If not, pause the video and give it a try. Try adding a few sub-steps using a checklist item to one of your cards. Thank you for watching Trello Beginner. We've covered the basics of using Trello to manage your tasks and projects. You can now use Trello to create boards with lists and cards. You can use checklists, labels, and due dates to better organize your tasks. And you can invite others to Trello to collaborate with you on your projects. Enjoy! Hello, and welcome to Trello Intermediate. At this point, you've already used Trello a little bit and you're familiar with some basics. Maybe you've used it to track your to-dos. Maybe you've used it to coordinate with a couple of other people on a project. You already know that a Trello workspace is a collection of one or more boards, and that a board is made up of lists that usually represent stages in a workflow. And you know that cards are used to track the work that needs to get done. And that usually cards move across the board from left to right as they move through the various stages of your workflow. In this course, we'll get beyond those basics to help you and your team get more out of Trello. We'll look at copying cards and copying checklists to save tedious manual steps. We'll look at applying filters so you can focus on just the items that need your attention. We'll connect your Trello board to your Google Calendar and a bunch of other stuff. Let's dig in. Sometimes, when making a new card, it's useful to copy from another card. You already know that you can click Add a Card to create a card from scratch, but in my scenario here, I want a card to track the work of building raised garden beds. That card is going to be very similar to this card that I already have for Build Garden Door. For example, it's going to reuse the same checklist, or at least a very similar one. And it has a picture of this garden, which also has a picture of the raised beds in it. So to make a copy of this card, all I need to do is click Copy. I can give it a new name, so I'll call this one Build Raised Beds. I'll keep the checklists. I'll keep all the other things about it. I'm going to copy it to my vegetable garden board. I'm going to put it in the to-do list, and I can select where it's going to be, and that's a fine position. And then I click Create Card. If I go ahead and close this card and I look back on my board, I'll see the new card for Build Raised Beds. Another way to copy a card is from the board view. Simply mouse over the card that you want to edit. Click the Edit Card icon and select Copy Card. You see that you have the same options as if you're in the card itself. I can create another card, choose what I want to keep, and determine where that card should go, into which list, in which position, and then click Create Card. It's just that simple. If you haven't yet used that feature of copying cards as opposed to creating them from scratch, go ahead and give it a try now. In a situation where a team is using a board, it's useful to be able to subscribe to a card so that you'll be notified when changes occur, such as comments are added, due dates change, or the card moves into a new list. In Trello, this is called watching a card. To watch a card, open it, then click Watch. Notice that the eye icon appears. You will also see that same icon on the board view of the card. When you watch a card, you get notifications about changes that other people have made to the cards, and you'll see those notifications up in this notification alert area. If you click into here, you can explore lots of options for changing settings around notifications, such as the frequency that you receive notifications and what kinds of actions trigger notifications for you. But if you want to make changes yourself to a card and you didn't make the card and don't yet have permission to make changes, you can join the card. To join, open the card and click Join. Note that when you join a card, you are also now watching the card. From time to time, you might want to remove cards from the board to remove visual clutter. This is useful when, say, no more action is going to be done on a card. You don't need to see it on the board anymore. In my example, I have several cards here in the Done list that I know nothing else is going to happen to these cards, so I can delete them. But rather than deleting, Trello offers the functionality of archiving a card. To archive a card, open it and select Archive. Note that when you close the card, this Buy Gardening Book card, you no longer see it in the Done list. It's hidden in a new archived area. You can also archive a card from the board view by mousing over it, click Edit, and then click Archive. For cards that are marked as completed, you'll see an archive card icon when you mouse over the card. Simply click Archive. If I archive all of these cards that are marked as done, I've now removed some clutter from my board, making it cleaner and easier to deal with because I'm no longer seeing things that don't need any actions. If I've made a mistake and want to retrieve one of those archived cards, click on the three dots, select Archived Items, and you'll see a list of all of those. You can select one and send it back to the board if for some reason you still need to have it on your board. Note that you can also, after archiving, delete the card. This would really only be used if for some reason the card was made in error. It's highly recommended that if you've used the card, but you don't need to see it on the board anymore, you simply archive it. If your board has lots of cards on it that no longer need any action, go ahead and give archiving a try to remove that clutter from your board. If you want to change the appearance of your board, you can easily change the background to a different color or an image. To do that, from the board view, click on the three dots in the top right corner. Then select Change Background. Click on Colors to choose a different color. Or, to select an image, click Photos. You can search. I'll search for garden and select one of these. And there it is. You can also use your own images as backgrounds. To do that, go back to Change Background, click Custom, select an image, and there it is. If I'd rather change this to cover the whole board instead of tiling, I can change that by going back to that image, selecting Options, and change it to Cover instead of Tile. I think I'll go back and use a solid color, because for me, that's a little bit easier on the eyes. If you're not happy with the background of your Trello board, pause the video and go ahead and try adding a photo or using a different color. Sometimes, instead of seeing all of the cards on the board, you might want to apply some filters so that you only see cards that meet certain criteria. In my example, I want to make sure every card has a due date. So it would be useful if I only saw the cards that didn't have dates assigned to them so that I would know which ones I need to add a date to. I can easily do this with filters. If I click on Filter, I have several different options here. I'm going to select Due Dates and No Dates. So only show me the cards that have no dates. Now I know which cards I need to go through to assign due dates to. Oh, but I've also have some cards here that are already done. Those ones don't need due dates, so I want to remove those from this view. I can do that by modifying my filter, selecting Not Marked as Complete. Hey, what happened? This card came back. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I need to change. Since I have two criteria here, I want to filter so that I only see cards that meet both of these criteria. Not marked as complete, and also doesn't have a due date. So instead of any match, I'll say exact match. Now I only see cards that meet both of my criteria. They don't have a due date, and they aren't marked as completed. When you're done filtering, you can click Clear All to remove those filters to go back to seeing all cards. If you've used labels, you know about how they can help with visual organization by adding some colors to cards that are meaningful in the context of your board. Another option for adding some visual clues to your cards is to use stickers. From the top right corner, click Stickers, and you'll see several to choose from. Maybe I want to use this rocket ship sticker to note cards that would be really fast to do, like Get Soil Tested. Now, at a glance, in the context of my board, I can see which cards are really small tasks and should be able to be accomplished quickly. Maybe those would be good candidates for getting moved over to doing if I have a little bit of spare time to do something small. Another option is to add your own stickers. Like maybe I want a sticker to note that a card is blocked, meaning I need a bit more information in order to continue, or some obstacle needs to be overcome that I need help with before I can move on. I don't see a sticker for stop. Well, maybe I could use this one, but I have a better one on my desktop. So I can click Custom Stickers, choose this stop image. It'll take a few seconds to upload. There it is. And now I can add it to a card. Let's say there's something about this ordering seed card that I need more information about. So this stop sticker makes it really clear at a glance when looking at the board that something needs to be addressed about this card. Go ahead and try adding some stickers to your cards to add some visual clues about what's going on with those cards. You'll probably find it very useful to add some comments to cards, especially if working with other people on a card. To add comments, open a card and write a comment. This is my card for Build Fence. I want to add some notes. maybe I'll mention that there are some different material options for building a fence. It could be made out of metal or wood. I could change this to a list and say the types of wood. Maybe it could be cedar, maybe it could be pressure treated pine. Lots of options for adding comments and notes to your card. When you're done, click Save. You'll see the comments, and if you close the card, you'll see on the card preview within the board the icon that notes that there are comments. Those comments can be edited at any time by clicking into the card and clicking Edit. And clicking Save. You can explore other options for formatting. You can add bold or italics. Note that you can also insert emojis. You can also mention other people, or use a special couple mentions like card and board to notify all members of the card or all members of the board. For software development teams, a useful feature is code snippet. Maybe I'll write a JavaScript function to build my fence with inputs for length, width, and height. And I can add the code of my function here. So there are lots of options for formatting the text within comments. They're a very useful way to communicate within the card about any conversation or any details that need to be recorded about the card. When you're collaborating with other people on boards, you might find that you've been invited to a board that you did not create. This allows you access to create and edit cards depending upon the permissions. And from time to time, if you're rolling off a project or for any other reason you no longer need to be part of a board, you can leave that board. To do that, click on the three dots in the top right corner, scroll down, and select Leave Board. Note you'll get a pop-up giving you one more chance to really choose that this is what you want to do. Yes, I want to leave the board, which will also cause me to be removed from all cards on this board. I'm done working on this project. I don't need to be a part of it anymore, so I can go ahead and leave the board. You already know that a Trello board lives within a workspace. If you are the person that created the workspace, you can control if that workspace is private or public. Let's take a look at that. To modify those settings, click on Workspaces, and then select a workspace. Click Workspace Settings, and then Workspace Settings again. Note that my workspace is marked as private. This means that it is not indexed by search engines, and it's not visible to those outside the workspace. I can invite people to it to collaborate with me on the boards within that workspace. But if I want to make this public so that anyone on the internet can see it, I click Change and then select Public. If I do that, this workspace and all the boards in it will become visible to anyone with the link and will show up in search engines like Google. But still, only those that I invite to the workspace can edit and add stuff to it. I want to leave this private, So I'll click private and close out. In the paid version of Trello, you can also set individual boards to be private or public. But in this free version, if there's one or more boards that I want to be public, I would just create a new workspace, change the workspace visibility to public, and put any public workspaces and put any public boards under that workspace. That's an easy way to control public and private boards, even in the free version of Trello. Take a look at your workspace settings and see if you've set it to private or public, and make sure that you're using the setting that makes sense for you. If you're using Trello in a team setting where there are multiple people working on the board, you will probably find it useful to have a way to see just the cards that are assigned to you. There are a few ways to do that. One is to look for your initials. Here are mine, FB. I can see my initials on several of the cards. I know that I have a role to play in getting these cards done. Another way is to use filters. Click on Filters and select Cards Assigned to Me. Now I'm only seeing the cards that are assigned to me. A third way is to click on your account in the top right corner, then select Cards. In this view, I see a list of all the cards that are assigned to me. Note that I can even see across different boards. I see some cards from the cookbook board and some from the My Vegetable Garden board. All of these cards are assigned to me. I see that some of them are already done. I can remove these from the view by clicking Filter Cards and select Not Marked as Completed. Now I'm seeing just the cards that are assigned to me that are not yet done. This is what I need to focus on. If you haven't yet tried using one of these methods to find the cards that are assigned to you, give it a try. If you're a member of many boards, it can be useful to highlight a few of them, maybe the ones that you use the most or that are the most critical. You can use the star function to do that. Simply click on the star icon. If I expand this sidebar menu, I'll see a list of my boards, and the starred ones are listed first. Note that if I unselect the star, the sorting changes. Let me go ahead and star this one because it's the most important board for me. Another place you can do this is under Workspaces. Select a workspace, and you'll see your boards with the starred ones listed first. You can mark multiple boards with a star and remove them as needed. In my case, let me go back to just starring My Vegetable Garden. This board's the most important to me. So with just a few boards, it's not so complicated, but you can imagine if you belong to many boards, starring your most useful ones creates an easy way to find the ones that you need to be engaged with most frequently. In a previous lesson, we looked at creating checklists. This card has a checklist because I can see it has the checklist items icon. If I click into the card, I can see that checklist. I want to use these checklist items in a different card. My first step is to click somewhere to the top left of the first checklist item, drag to select all the checklist items, use my keyboard shortcut to copy, Control-C or Command-C. I'll close this card, go to my other card, Build Fence, click Checklist, click Add, and then Control-V or Command-V to paste all the items, then click Add. Each of those items now becomes a checklist item in this card. Let's look at a perhaps simpler way to achieve the same thing. Let me go ahead and delete this checklist. And I'll create a new one. Click Checklist, give it a title. Note that I have this option to copy items from, and here I can select another card. I'm going to choose the checklist from my Build Garden Door card. Then click Add. All of the items are copied over, and then I can edit them as needed. A third way to achieve the same thing is to copy the whole card itself. Let's take a look at that. I go to Build Garden Door. I can copy this whole card and pick and choose which items I want to copy. In this example, I just want to copy the checklist, and I'll call this card Build Trellis. Click Create Card. If I click on the card, I see the card has been created with the checklist copied over. So those are 3 different ways that you can copy a checklist from one card to another. Previously, we've covered a couple of ways to copy a card to create a new one. You know that you can hover over a card, select Edit, and then Copy Card. Or if you're looking at a card, you can select Copy. A third way to do this is to simply hover over a card that you want to copy, use your keyboard shortcut to copy, Control-C or Command-C. Note that the card has been copied to the clipboard. Hover over where you'd like to paste the card, and then use your keyboard shortcut to paste, Control-V or Command-V. Note that the card has been added to the list. From here, you can edit as needed. Trello exists in the cloud. It's web-based. Let's talk about some of the advantages that gives you over, say, a spreadsheet that lives on your desktop or sticky notes that live at your workstation. Because Trello lives in the cloud, it offers some advantages. One is accessibility. It allows you to access your projects, boards, and lists from any device with an internet connection, whether it's a computer, tablet, or smartphone. Trello has mobile apps for iOS and Android, making it easy to manage your projects on the go. Trello integrates with other web-based tools like Slack and Dropbox, enhancing its functionality and making it a central hub for your project management needs. And lastly, and most powerfully, collaboration. Trello facilitates real-time collaboration by allowing multiple users to work on the same boards and lists simultaneously, regardless of their location. You don't need to worry about saving versions or what's the latest version, because everyone always has a most up-to-date view of the project. Often, you'll find that the work between one or more cards is related. They're connected to each other. For example, I have this card for Build Garden Door. I have another card for Build Fence. These 2 cards are related because the work is related. The door will live within the context of the fence. I can make the connection between these 2 cards explicit in Trello a couple of different ways. Let's take a look. First, I'll get the URL for the Build Fence card. I'll copy that to my clipboard. Now, I'll go to the Build Garden Door card and add a comment. I can say, this is the card for Build Fence, and then paste it. If I click Save, you'll see I now have a preview of the Build Fence card. I can see that it's in the to-do list. And when I mouse over it, I get a bit more information, such as I can see that there's a comment. It has a checklist of 5 items. You can modify the way that this preview looks by clicking Edit, hover over the card preview, click Configure, and choose another visual representation of the card, whatever works for you. So that's one way to connect these cards together. Another way is through the attachment feature. If I click Attachment, I can paste the URL to that card and click Insert. And now I see the Trello card as an attachment. Same thing. I see some information about it. There's a comment. 0 of 5 checklist items are done. And if I click on it, I'll go to the Build Fence card. Let's take a look at another way to do that. Let me go back to Build Garden Door. I'll remove this attachment. To add another card as an attachment, another way, click on Attachment and start searching. Build, and I can see a list of results of cards that match my search. I'll click Build Fence. Now I have this card as an attachment. I can click on it and it brings me to the other card. Now what if I want a two-way connection? To do that, let me go back to Build Garden Door. I'll modify this attachment by clicking on the 3 buttons, the 3 dots. I'll modify this attachment by clicking on the 3 dots. Click Connect Cards. Would you like to attach Build Garden Door to Build Fence? Yes, I want to relate these cards together. Note they are now connected. Now, when I'm looking at my Build Garden Door card, I see a connection to Build Fence. When I go to the Build Fence card, I see a connection to Build Garden Door. The work of these 2 cards is integrally related, so now the cards are related as well. If you find there are multiple cards on your board that are connected together conceptually, try connecting them through the system by using that attachment technique and then connecting the cards so that it's a 2-way connection. If you're like me, you'll also find it useful to see your due dates on your Google Calendar or whatever web-based calendar that you use to keep track of your days. There are a few ways to do this in Trello. Let's take a look at a free way to do it. First, from your board, click the 3 buttons in the top right corner and select Power-Ups. Power-Ups are additional functionality that you can enable for your Trello board. Some of these power-ups are free and some of them are paid. There are many, many to explore. We're going to look for one in particular. So I'll click Search and type Calendar. I want to use the one named Calendar Power Up. So I'll select it, click Add. Now, when I close this Power Up menu, I'll see a new icon here. This is for my Calendar Power Up. When I click on it, I'll see a calendar view of cards with cards placed on their due dates. A handy thing about this view is that you can easily change a due date by simply dragging the card onto a new calendar day. Now let's take a look at connecting this calendar to my Google Calendar. I'll click on Settings, then Enable Sync, which is going to generate this calendar URL. I'll copy it to my clipboard. I'll go to my Google Calendar, click Other Calendars and the plus sign to add it. I'm going to add from URL, so I'll click that. I'll paste the URL and click Add Calendar. Calendar is created and it's fetching events in the background. If I close out of settings, I now see my vegetable garden, which is the name of my Trello board, listed in other calendars. And I can see that I have certain events for that calendar listed. If I click on one, I can see that this card, Get Soil Tested, which is currently in the to-do list, is due on Monday, April 14th. That's a free and easy way to connect your Trello cards and your Trello boards to your Google Calendar. If you haven't yet connected Trello to your web-based calendar, use that calendar power-up to make the connection. Go ahead, give it a try. Let's take a look at how to create boards and lists. To create a board, click on the plus button at the top of the page. From here, you can create your own board from scratch, or you can start with a template. Choose one from the list or explore more templates. For our example, let's go back and click Create Board. I want to create a board to track my new cookbook project. So I'll enter a title named Cookbook. I can select a different background or color. And I'll review the visibility options, and I'll leave the default setting. Then click Create. My first list, I'll give the title of Recipe Ideas. Here's where I will record all of my ideas for different recipes that I might want to include in my cookbook. My next list will be called Test and Refine. This is where I will keep track of the recipes that I'm testing and getting just right before I put them into my cookbook. And finally, I'll create a list for Done. I don't want to create a fourth list, so I'll go ahead and click the X on the rightmost list. If you need to add additional lists later, simply click on Add Another List. I think that after I've refined my recipe, I want to photograph the results so that my cookbook can include some tempting photos. So I'm going to make a new list, and I'll title it Photos. Then I'll click Add List. This list is not in the right spot for my workflow, so I'm just going to click and drag it to move it into the correct location. I think I'm going to take photographs after my recipes have been tested and refined, and before I consider that recipe done and ready for my cookbook. So I'll just drag it and drop it into the correct location. If you haven't yet created your first Trello board with lists, go ahead and give it a try now. Pause the video, give it a try, and then come on back. That's it for this Trello Intermediate course. You've gone beyond the basics to look at quick and easy ways to copy checklists from one card to another, and how to copy entire cards with a couple of keyboard clicks. You've learned an easy way to find all of the cards assigned to you, and you've connected your board to your web-based calendar so that you'll always be on top of deadlines. I'm looking forward to your using those skills, along with others that we practiced today, to get the most out of Trello. Welcome to Trello Advanced. At this point, you're familiar with the basics of using Trello to manage your projects and tasks, and maybe you have some experience collaborating with other team members on a board. You've seen how Trello can help you and your project stay organized, and you've learned some best practices and tips to help you and your team work efficiently. In this course, we'll explore additional features to help that efficient and effective use of Trello grow. We'll learn how to create cards by sending an email to the board. We'll take your board to the next level with power-ups, which offer a vast array of additional functionality. And we'll explore the Trello app so you can access Trello from your mobile device. Those and other advanced features will be covered in this course. Let's get started. Sometimes, if you're working through your email inbox, a task might occur to you that you'd like to add to Trello. You can do this without having to go into Trello itself by simply sending an email to your Trello account. Let's take a look at how that works. First, if you don't see something regarding inbox, you might need to enable this feature by enabling beta. I'm going to try the beta experience to give this a try. In this beta experience, a feature is enabled called Inbox. You can use this icon at the bottom of the screen to view or hide your inbox. Let's take a closer look at how Inbox works. I see I have the ability to add a card here. Just like you're familiar with on boards, this card exists in this special space called Inbox. Note that if I switch to a different board, my inbox stays the same. So Inbox isn't tied to one specific board. Instead, it's tied to your Trello account. Now, we talked about emailing to your inbox. Let's see how that works. I'll click on these three dots and select Add from Email. Note that you can add a card from your inbox by emailing this special email address. That will work if you send the email from the same email address associated with your Trello account. But maybe that is not your situation, so let's take a look at another option. You can send from any email address to this specific unique email address that is generated just for your Trello account. I'm going to copy this email address and compose an email. I'll paste it to that unique address. Now, I have in my head this idea that I need to install 8 bean poles for my bean plants in my garden. So I will enter the subject of bean poles. Install 8 bean poles, because I have 8 bean plants. Then I'll click Send. Within a few seconds, back in Trello, you'll see a new card in your inbox. I see that it has the envelope icon, which says to me that it was created from an email address. If I click on the card, I see my title, which came from the subject line, and the description, which is the body of the email. The next time I'm in Trello, I might go ahead and add that card to the relevant board. Let's go ahead and try that again with some more information in the email and perhaps some formatting. I'll go back to compose an email, sending it to this unique email address for my Trello account. And I have some tomato plants, and I need to install tomato cages to help support them as they grow. So I'll write a note to myself, install 6 tomato cages by April 20th. I want to get this done soon. And I'll note that there are several steps to this. First, I need to buy those cages I need to choose the location of where they're going to go. I need to install them. I need to secure plants to cages as they grow to help support them even more. So I'll send that email. Switch back to Trello. And here's my card. Note that it has a deadline. Let's take a look. Due date, April 19th, 8 p.m. Trello used artificial intelligence to read my message and glean additional information out of it to put into Trello. I said that the card needed to be completed by April 20th, so Trello assigned a due date of late at night on April 19th. Note that it also took my bullet points and created a checklist. So emailing to your Trello inbox offers some pretty advanced features so that you can put some additional information and details into your email, and Trello will do a pretty good job of putting that into specific locations within the card. If you haven't yet tried this feature of emailing to your inbox, pause the video and give it a try. Remember, you might need to enable beta depending on the version of Trello that you're using. In the previous chapter, we explored how to send an email to your Trello inbox. And you might remember that the inbox is not specific to a board. It's specific to your Trello account. So your inbox applies across all the boards. In this chapter, we will take a look at how to send an email directly to a specific board. To do that, I'll click on the three dots in the top right corner, scroll down, and select Email to Board. Trello has generated an email address for this board. I'm looking at my vegetable garden board, so this is the email address for this specific board. I have some options about how this functionality will work. I can choose which list cards will appear when I email this address. On my board, it makes sense for cards to go to the to-do list. Those are items that I haven't started working on yet. I can choose the position of where that card should go. I'll leave bottom selected, so the card goes to the bottom of the list. Now let's give this feature a try. I'll copy the email address, go over to my email account, start a message to that address, I want to grow some sunflowers, so I'll send an email to my board to remind me to do this. I'll click back to my board, scroll down to the bottom of my to-do list, and there's my card, Sunflowers, with the subject line as the title of the card, and the body of the email showing up as the description. Let's try sending an email with some additional information and formatting. I'll click back to Compose Email, paste that unique email for my board, and I want to create a card about irrigation. I'm planning to grow all this stuff, but I haven't figured out how I'm going to water everything. So while I'm in my email inbox, I'll write a note to my Trello board. And I will remind myself to figure out irrigation by May 1st. And I'll note some next steps. Perhaps I need to buy a hose. I need to buy a nozzle. And I need to buy a moisture reader so I know when to water. And this is a high priority item. So I can use hashtag and then the name of one of my labels. And this will put that label right on the card automatically. I'll click send. And after a few seconds, if you go back to your board, you will see that new card. Here it is, the card for irrigation, and I see it has the high priority label. Note that a due date was not assigned, and the next steps just show up as part of my description. So the functionality that we saw in the previous chapter, where setting an email to your inbox does some pretty neat stuff, like adding checklists and due dates automatically, that functionality doesn't work when you email to the board directly. Maybe that's something the Trello will update in the future. But for now, note that the behavior is a little bit different when you email your inbox versus emailing your board directly. You still might find it useful, or you might find one more useful than the other. Trello gives you a couple of options to help you work in the way that feels right to you. Very often, the work within a board, the work between cards, are related to one another. The work from one card affects the work being done on another card. You can link the two cards together in a couple of ways. Let's take a look at that. I have one card for Build Garden Door and another one for Build Fence. The work of those is going to be kind of related because the door will sit within the context of the fence. So let me open the Build Fence card and copy this URL. Then I'll go to the Build Garden Door card, click on Attachment, and paste that URL. Then click Insert. Note that the Build Fence card is now an attachment. I can click on it, and that brings me right to the Build Fence card. Now, I actually want this to be a two-way relationship. Let me go back to Build Garden Door. I'll click on these three dots below that attachment that I just added and select Connect Cards. Trello is asking me if I want to relate both cards. Yes, I do. Now, when I click through to the Build Fence card, I see another attachment on that card to go back to Build Garden Door. So now I have a two-way relationship between these cards. And that can be useful for the people working on these cards when they want an at-a-glance view of what's going on to some related work, and also the ability to quickly jump over to that other card. You can also link to other boards. So let me switch to a different board, say my cookbook board, and copy that URL. I'll go back to my vegetable garden board, and maybe I'm going to use some sunflower seeds in one of my recipes. So I will add as an attachment a link to that board. And there it is. Note that when I add another board as an attachment, I don't see an option to create that two-way connection. That's something that just works for cards within the same board. But depending on the card that you're working on, it could be useful to take advantage of this feature, where you link directly to another board. Note that when you mouse over it, you can open a preview of it for an at-a-glance view of what's going on with that board. Take a look at your board and your cards and see if it's useful to create a two-way connection between any of the cards, and maybe to see if it's useful to link to another board. Give it a try. Trello offers a number of keyboard shortcuts to help you be super productive. Let's take a look at some shortcuts that work while you are viewing a board. From any board, click B to open the board menu. Use the arrow keys to navigate across your boards and click Enter to open that board. I'll go back to my garden board by clicking B, using arrow keys to select it, then click Enter. The arrow keys also work within the board to navigate across cards. When you've selected a card that you'd like to open, click Enter. That'll open up the card. Click Escape to close the card. When a card is selected, I can use the keyboard shortcut to copy it, Control-C on Windows or Command-C on a Mac. And I can click somewhere else on my list to paste it, Control-V or Command-C. Now I have a copy of that card. Another thing you can do when you've copied a card, again, I've selected one, Control-C to copy. If I mouse over another card and use keyboard shortcuts to paste, Control-V or Command-V, note that this card now is an attachment. If I open it, I can see that the card that I pasted is now attached. Some other keyboard shortcuts that work when you're viewing a board. Click F. This will open up the filter menu. From here, I can apply filters such as overdue to only see the overdue items. Clicking X will clear those filters. And a super helpful shortcut is Q. Type Q to filter to just the cards that are assigned to you. And again, you can clear those filters by clicking X. Let's take a look at some shortcuts that work within a card. To add yourself to a card, hit the spacebar. Note that you are now a member of this card and you are watching it. To make a due date, click D. To open the labels, click L. You can also apply labels using the number shortcuts that correspond to the sequence of your labels. So for me, typing 1 applies the label of grow. Typing 2 is my second label, which is medium. I will click L again to remove those labels. Sometimes, if you've been using Trello for a while, you might note that sometimes you forget to click Save. Or maybe you've added a lot of text and forgot to click Save. You can get into the habit, when writing comments, of using Control Enter as you type, which will save your edits right then. Which of those was your favorite shortcut? Go ahead and give it a try on your board. Trello offers lots of functionality to help you and your team be productive. Trello also offers additional functionality in the form of power-ups. Power-ups are add-on features that extend what Trello can do in all kinds of ways. Some power-ups are developed and supported by Trello, and some are offered by third-party developers. Let's take a look at how to enable a power-up, and we'll add a few that I have found helpful on my boards. To access power-ups, click on the three dots in the top right corner, scroll down and click Power-Ups. There are many, many power-ups to explore here. Some are listed under Featured, some are listed under Made by Trello, and there are various categories to help you find power-ups that might be relevant for your project. The name of the power-up that I want to use is Pin Card. What this power-up does is allows me to pin cards to the top of the list. We'll take a look at how that might be useful. I'll click Add, read some information about it, confirm by clicking Add again. I can read some information about this card, and when I'm ready, close this window. This card is useful for pinning a card to the top of a list. I've seen this implemented really well when the top of the list includes some instructions about how this list should be used. So for example, I might add a card called Definition of Done. And I might add some details here that explain what it means for this board when a card is done. I'll click Pin Card, which is a new option now that I've enabled this power-up. I'll pin this card. And now it's at the top of my list. If someone tries to move it, it'll go right back here and stay there. That's an example of one power-up. Let's add another one called Card Aging. I'll go back to my power-ups menu. I'll search for it, Card Aging. Click Add. Note this one, I don't need to take a second step to add it. Note that you can also review the settings here. I'll close this power-up window. And what this power-up does is add some visual clues about the age of a card. I can see some of these look old and weathered. That means nothing has happened on this card in some time. They're getting stale. This tells me that someone needs to get going on these. Or maybe they need to get broken up into smaller tasks so that the project can move along. Voting can be useful when you have many or several people working on a board. This power-up enables the vote feature. People can express their support for a card. This is useful when there are many items on the to-do list and you're wondering, what's the most important? What should we tackle next? Voting can help clarify which ones there is support for. Finally, let's enable the power-up for Google Drive. This is one of the most popular power-ups. The Google Drive power-up creates a strong integration between Google Drive and Trello. With this power-up enabled, I see a Google Drive option on a card. I can click on it and attach a file from my Google Drive. There it is under Links. From here, I can click right into that Google Doc and find additional information that's going to be relevant for whoever is doing the work on this card. Another neat feature about this power-up is you can create a file right from Trello. I can create, say, a Google Sheet and go ahead and start editing it. And now it's linked right to my card. So those are a few power-ups that I have found useful. Again, there are hundreds to choose from. You can connect Trello with Slack or Jira, all kinds of external tools. Take a look and see if there are any power-ups that might be relevant for your board. Go ahead, explore them, and give them a try. In the previous chapter, we explored power-ups, add-on features that extend Trello functionality. If you ever need to change any of your power-up settings, you can do that by accessing the power-up menu. Click the three dots in the top right, scroll down, and click Power-ups. Click Enabled to see all of the power-ups that are currently enabled for your board. Click Settings on any of the power-ups to change those settings. For example, my card aging setting currently is in pirate mode, which makes the older cards look crackle and teared. I can switch that to regular mode, and we'll see how that changes the appearance. You can also disable power-ups at any time by, again, clicking on Power-ups, clicking on Enabled, click Settings, and choose to disable. You can choose whether to keep that power-up data, which might be useful, especially if you think you might re-enable that power-up sometime, or simply click Disable Power-up. So it's easy to modify power-up settings, add, and remove them as needed. Let's take a look at some of the options for formatting text, which is useful when you are adding descriptions or comments to your cards. Some text formatting can go a long way to adding clarity. Let's start with this one. I want to grow some sunflowers. Steps are: buy seeds, start seeds indoors, and transplant outside. Now this might work a little bit better with some formatting. So maybe this, I'll make a heading. These steps probably work better as a bulleted list. You can also bold text or italicize it. You can insert elements such as a mention. This allows you to tag other people so they will get notified about this comment that you're adding. A couple of special mentions, @card and @board, will send to multiple people. @card will send to all members of the card, and @board will send to all members of the board. Use these carefully. Another useful formatting option for software development teams is inserting a code snippet. Maybe I'll put a function for growing sunflowers, which takes inputs of soil, water, and sunlight. And then I can code my function here to ensure a really good sunflower. So there are all kinds of formatting options. If you haven't yet tried some of these, update one of your cards with some formatting to help add some clarity to your comments. If you use Google Chrome, you'll find lots of Chrome extensions that work with Trello. Head over to the Chrome Web Store and search Trello. You'll find lots of results. I've already installed a few. Let's take a look one by one. First, I will enable the Chrome extension for Trello Card Number Plus. If I refresh my board, I'll see that extension take effect. Each card now displays a unique number. This is the unique ID of the card within the Trello system and can be used for easily identifying which card we're talking about if I'm talking about this card with other people. This can be especially useful in software development teams, or really any kind of team context. If we refer to the card by its number, which will never change, we know we're talking about the same thing. The label, the title of a card, might change from time to time. So using the number to refer to a card ensures that we're always talking about the same thing. This extension also adds a count at the top of each list, so I can see that there are 10 cards in the to-do list and 2 cards in the doing list. Let's take a look at another extension, List Highlighter for Trello. What this extension does is visually highlights or de-highlights certain lists depending on rules that have been defined. There are some rules out of the box, and that's what we're seeing here. It looks for lists that are titled doing or something that would suggest that this is a list about things that are happening now, and it highlights it in red. And then the list that is labeled done fades into the background. This helps give visual clarity and helps me focus on the list that I need to focus on in my day-to-day work. These settings can be changed at any time from the extension settings. You can see the rules that have been defined right out of the box, and I can add additional rules, delete ones, modify as needed. Maybe I'll highlight my to-do list in orange. Let's take a look at one more extension. The Plannyway for Trello extension. This adds lots of functionality related to time tracking, dates, anything date and time related. When you go into a card, you'll see that I can track time for this card. This is useful if it's important to know how much time was spent by one or more people on any given card. This extension also comes with a full screen view of your Trello data in various views. In this view, I'm looking at a timeline organized by members, and I'm looking at today's date, and I can see what is happening and what has due dates now. I can also look in other groupings such as labels. So I can see all the stuff that is high for this week. In this case, all the things that are going on with dates for this week don't have a label. There is tons of functionality here. And right now, I'm in my trial version of this. And the paid version gives the ability to access this functionality and much, much, much more. So that's a quick look at a few different Chrome extensions that can be used to add additional functionality to your Trello board. If you use Chrome, give it a try. Head over to the Chrome Web Store, search for Trello, and explore the options. See if there's something that might be useful for you and your team. So far, we've been using Trello in a web browser, but Trello is also available as an app. I've installed the Trello app for Windows, and it should look pretty familiar to you. I see my lists with cards. I can access my inbox. I can click on a card to open it and access all the details. I can change dates. All the things you would expect to be able to do from the website, you can also do from the app. Depending upon your device, it might look different than this. On a smartphone, the dimensions are certainly going to be different, but you'll find all the same functionality in all the places where you would expect to find it. Using the Trello app allows you to use Trello on the go from wherever you are. And if you haven't yet given it a try, download the app, install it, log in, and give it a go. Thank you for joining me in this Trello Advanced course, where we've explored advanced features to help you and your team get the most out of Trello. You've learned how to create cards by sending an email to your board, and you've seen what AI can do when an email lands in your Trello inbox. You've picked up some keyboard shortcuts to supercharge your efficiency, and you've learned how you can extend the functionality of Trello with power-ups and Google Chrome extensions. Congratulations! You can now consider yourself an advanced Trello user.